America tried to contain China, not with bombs, not with blockades, but with rules, restrictions, and red lines drawn in code, contracts, and supply chains. And for a moment, it looked like it worked. Then the system pushed back. At first glance, the story seems simple. China rose too fast. Its technological ambitions grew too close to America's core advantages. Washington responded. Export controls, investment screening, sanctions, alliance coordination. From semiconductors to artificial intelligence, the United States began drawing boundaries around what China could access, build, and scale. This was not framed as confrontation. It was framed as responsibility. Protect national security, defend democratic values, preserve technological leadership. And on paper, the strategy appeared coherent. America would restrict the most advanced tools. Allies would align. China would slow. But that version of the story, the one that fits neatly into headlines, conceals something deeper. Because what followed was not a clean contest of power. It was a lesson in how modern systems behave when pressure is applied. The word containment carries historical weight in American political culture. It evokes the Cold War. Clear blocks, clear lines, clear enemies. But the system America now operates in bears little resemblance to that era. Today's power does not move primarily through territory. It moves through standards, through software updates, through supply chains that cross dozens of borders before a product ever reaches a consumer. And yet, Washington attempted to apply a familiar logic to an unfamiliar landscape. If we control the choke points, the thinking went, we control the outcome. Semiconductors became the focus. Not because they are glamorous, but because they are foundational. No advanced AI, no modern weapons, no competitive economy, without chips. So America targeted the upstream layers, manufacturing equipment, design software, advanced nodes. And for a moment, it looked like the perfect lever. One of the most underappreciated aspects of America's China strategy is how deeply legal it is. This is not a war fought with troops. It is a contest fought with regulations, export control lists, entity lists, compliance requirements, licensing regimes. In effect, Washington attempted to embed its strategic goals inside the legal architecture of global commerce. This approach had advantages. It was quieter than military escalation, more flexible than tariffs. And it allowed the United States to act without formally declaring confrontation. But it also revealed something important. When law becomes strategy, enforcement becomes everything. And enforcement depends on systems that were never designed for this kind of pressure. What American policymakers underestimated was not China's resolve. It was the system itself. Global technology ecosystems are not obedient hierarchies. They are adaptive networks. When pressure is applied at one point, stress redistributes elsewhere. Companies reroute supply chains. Engineers redesign architectures. Capital finds new pathways, not because of ideology, but because survival demands it. Restrictions did not freeze the system, they forced it to evolve, and evolution rarely follows the script of policymakers. Washington often spoke of decoupling. The word suggests separation, clean breaks, two systems drifting apart. But what actually emerged was something more complicated. Selective dependence, partial disengagement, strategic ambiguity. Certain links were cut. Others were quietly reinforced. American firms still needed Chinese markets. Chinese firms still needed Western technologies, just not always from the same suppliers. Decoupling became less a divorce and more a rearrangement. And rearrangements create friction, not control. The United States did not act alone. It asked allies to align. Japan, the Netherlands, South Korea, Europe, and many did. But alignment came with limits. Allies share values, not identical interests. They operate under different political constraints, different economic pressures. As Washington pushed harder, some partners began to hesitate, not publicly, but structurally. They complied in principle, but sought flexibility in practice. Because in a world where alliances function as supply chains, uniformity is costly, and cost shapes behavior. A common misconception in Western commentary is that China responded by trying to destroy the existing system. That is not what happened. China adapted within it. It invested in redundancy, in domestic capacity, in alternative standards, not because those alternatives were superior, but because dependence had become risky. This was not defiance for its own sake, it was institutional self-preservation, and here lies the uncomfortable truth. The more America tried to restrict access, the more it signaled where leverage mattered, and once leverage is visible, it rarely remains exclusive for long. Technology was once treated as neutral, a tool, a product, a market good. That era is over. Today, technology carries political weight whether we acknowledge it or not. Control over software updates can shape military readiness. Control over data flows can influence governance. Control over standards can determine who sets the rules. America's China strategy revealed this reality, not just to Beijing, but to the world. And once revealed, it cannot be unseen. There is a paradox at the heart of American power. The United States built the global system, but that system now constrains its ability to act unilaterally. When Washington weaponizes access, it accelerates diversification. When it draws red lines, it teaches others where to step carefully. Power exercised through systems is powerful, but brittle. It works best when others believe it will not be used excessively. Once that belief erodes, adaptation. It would be a mistake to frame this story as American failure. The United States remains extraordinarily influential. Its institutions are resilient. Its alliances still matter. But this episode exposes limits. Limits to control. Limits to predictability. Limits to the idea that rules alone can shape outcomes in a complex world. The system resisted not because it favors China, but because systems resist simplification. This story is not really about America or China. It is about how power works in the 21st century. Power now flows through, code instead of borders, standards instead of speeches, infrastructure instead of ideology. And that makes control harder, slower, and more negotiated. Democracies must learn to operate within that reality, not deny it. America tried to contain China. What it discovered instead was something more unsettling. That in a deeply interconnected world, power is not enforced. It is managed. Not imposed, but negotiated. Not absolute, but conditional. The system resisted because it was never designed to be commanded by any single actor, and that raises a question worth sitting with. If even the most powerful nation must now negotiate with the systems it created, what does that mean for the future of sovereignty, security, and democratic control? That is the story behind the headline, and it is far from over.